Hello, everybody, and welcome to your next episode of At the Table with Jennifer McQueen. I am your host, Jennifer McQueen, and of course, I am here with the wonderful Wendy Eklund, founder of Legislation Take Action. Hello there, Wendy.
Hi, Jennifer. Hi, everybody.
All right, so of course, let's get a little bit of house cleaning out of the way. First thing, we have to remind you to subscribe to our channel for all of the updates. And I definitely have a feeling that we are going to be having quite a few updates coming here in the next little bit. Not only are we going to have more legislation updates for you, but coming up very soon and next week, in fact, we will be filming our homeschooling for free, which will also feature Wendy along with a few other parents that have mastered this homeschooling for free game. Of course, as always, you would like to make sure you follow Legislation Take Action on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to continue to be updated on everything. And you can connect with us on the website at www.homeschoolconcierge.com/legislation. Okay. So now let's get to why we are here today. We actually have a super special episode for you guys today. Not only is it Wendy and myself, but we also have some special additional guests to talk to you. So we're very excited. I want to share with you all that in case you did not know, this morning at Rio Charter School, in conjunction with the California School Choice Foundation and Reopen California Schools, Assembly Member Kevin Kiley endorsed the California School Choice Initiative. Okay, now this does not just impact our homeschool community like you guys are used to us talking about. This will impact and affect every single learner and family across California. All right, this initiative, at least as of now, it seems to me, and like I said, we're going to be talking to Wendy further and two special guests, but it seems to me that it aims to do something that really I've been preaching about for quite some time now, which is that education money should stay with and follow the learner. I can say it until I'm blue in the face. I feel that, neighborhood brick and mortar schools, they just do not serve every single learner's individual needs, and it just does not work for everybody. So I was actually able to watch some of the conference this morning, some of Kiley's conference this morning live on Facebook. And Kiley did say, I wanted to share it, that school choice, realistically, yes, it is fully available to some already. That some being the wealthy. Simply put, the wealthy families are moved into neighborhoods with quality schools. Mm-hmm. And really, the prevailing education agenda at our capital seeks to entrench this inequity. Okay, now Kevin Kiley this morning says, and I quote, "A school choice agenda, by contrast, seeks to overcome it by putting every California parent in the driver's seat, regardless of where they live or how much money they make." All right, so again, I reiterate, if you know anything about me, you know that this truly resonates and aligns with a lot of what I believe in. Okay, so what exactly does this school choice initiative mean? And what is the story with education savings accounts? I know we want to dive in. I know we want to talk about it. And we are, of course, here to give you all the info that you need and to really fill you in on everything you need to know about it. Now, we know other states like Arizona, Florida, Mississippi, Nevada, and Tennessee have school choice and ESAs already, but what would this look like in California? Okay, so speaking this morning along with Kiley was Jonathan Zackerson. He is a parent and Placer County chair for the School Choice Foundation. He is a fierce advocate for getting students back into the classroom after the COVID-19 closures, and founder of Reopen California Schools on Twitter, which I will say I also heard this morning from Kevin Kiley's mouth that this is the account that Kiley gives credit to as, I quote, "an invaluable source for info for me about what's going on in every district in California." So, of course, we are lucky enough today to have Jonathan joining us. He's going to speak with us tonight, and really not only is he knowledgeable about this topic, but he definitely brings a perspective to us from the brick and mortar sector. So let's have him up here. Jonathan, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so if you would, could you please, because you're kind of the man that knows all the stuff, walk us through.
You overestimate me.
Well, I listened to your talk this morning, and I really like how it was broken down. So if you could kind of walk us through what exactly is the text in the school choice initiative, how will it impact California K-12 students and families, and of course, we would like a little introduction and get to know who you are.
Yeah. So my name is Jonathan Zackerson, founder of Reopen California Schools. I got involved with this late last spring, so a little over a year now. And that was really to get schools back open. My kids were suffering tremendously from the school shutdowns, and I knew that they did best at their school that I was sending them. And so it's trying to get them back open. And it's unfortunate that it took us an entire year to get there, more than a year to get there. Right. So that's kind of how I got involved in this. And in this process, I realized that, if we had a different mechanism of how education was funded in California, if parents had a choice in where they sent their kids and if the funding followed the students, we wouldn't have had the shutdowns this past year. Yes, we would have had them in the spring of 2020, but they would have figured it out by the time fall of 2020 came around. And that is because there would have been parents that wanted to remain in a distance learning model. They would have served those needs. And parents that wanted to be in person, there would have been an opportunity and a model for them. And so that's really when I got, that's a point I realized, we need to do something. And I sought out, ballot initiative. I was going to try to do it myself. Turns out California school choice was already out there, and they had been working on this for a while, and they have a really good bill initiative in place that's going to be voter-led, collecting signatures. We'll need about 1 million signatures to get there, and hopefully we'll be ready for that in about 2 months. But the key provisions of that initiative is that every student will be able to have, at the request of the parents, will be able to have an education savings account. And this is available to every student, every K through 12 student in California. Each year, that account would be credited with what's known as their Prop 98 funds. So there's a budget that's allocated to per pupil spending in California, and this would allocate those funds to these education savings accounts for those that opted to have them. This next budget year, that is about $14,000 per student, and so this would be credited to the account for every pupil every year. That money would be able to be spent, again, directed by the parents to, any public school, a charter school, and any accredited private or religious school. Those funds would be available to be spent on those that education. And then another really, I think, key provision that's kind of new, that's big is that this money actually rolls forward. So any unspent funds for those students would accumulate year after year, whatever is unspent, and then could be later spent for vocational school or college, or any other future, eligible education expense.
Right.
Okay, so this seems like amazing news. Okay, so I'm all about it. So if you, can you kind of tell us, so who exactly would be opposing this?
Well, I guess to be frank, probably certain institutions that helped keep schools closed for this last year. Right. So we do know that there aren't really unions in homeschool. The unions there's not really there at private and religious schools, and they tend to not be there at charter schools. And so this would really expand the opportunities of families to pick, a lot of those different options, even in a situation where, homeschool that maybe you're not part of a participating, charter, like a homeschool charter or a private charter. If you're not even part of that, at least the money would be able to be accumulate for your kid to be spent later on for maybe options in the future and maybe high school, or definitely for vocational school or college. And right, like I said, it's $14,000. It adds up pretty quick over those years. So I think those institutions would oppose it because of the monopoly that is on education. But I can tell you that, I fully expect that when we get this passed, that those institutions will dramatically improve their offerings because if they don't, they will lose students.
Right.
And the public schools that do really well, they'll probably get more students. Because parents will be able to have those options and be able to direct those funds towards those performing education institutions.
I have
Okay.
a question.
Yeah.
So do you know if this would stop legislators from having access to, I don't know if you know, but last year with SB 98, they no longer allowed the funding to follow the student and they froze funding at wherever the student had been prior to February 28th. So does this take that power away from them because we as the voters have stated that this money needs to follow the student?
Yeah, it would. Now they might be able to do some funding tricks about fixing right. certain amounts, because again, it's their share of that funding. But the idea is this bill will be very clear. It's going to be a big bill. It's not going to be like if anyone who's familiar with some of the recall petitions for whatever, either the governor or for local politicians, it's going to be pretty big. So because it's a constitutional amendment to California, so it has to go into depth of a lot of different things. It's going to talk about debt. It's going to give certain deadlines to be able to open the education savings accounts. It's going to cover provisions about partial years. So there's a lot of complexity into it. But the high level, right? Most people, we're not worrying about those scenarios all the time, but they got to build it in there. So those will all be there. And anything outside, it's going to be in the Constitution. So if the state legislature did what they did with Prop 98, that fixed funding, they could probably do that if you're not in the education savings account, right? If you didn't opt into it, but if you opted into it, then you're out of that model, and you have the Constitution behind you and be able to sue immediately to be able to get those funds recovered.
Well, I love the idea of giving the power back to the parents.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So one more question from me as well. So I know you had mentioned, so as it stands right now, it would be, for example, $14,000 per student per year. Will it always be $14,000 a year, or how does that work in terms of the flex in the amount?
Yeah, so it won't always be $14,000 per year. Generally education spending has risen in California, so I would expect it to probably go up over time. But it's essentially the Prop 98 share of funds, which again, I'm not so much into that detail, but my understanding, and then if you can correct me on this one, but it's about 40% of all taxes, not everything, about 40% of all taxes is guaranteed for education spending for K through 12. And so that money, whatever that ends up being, will be directed to the student. So in a situation like public schools, right, that money is going per pupil from the state. Now public schools still have local funding on top of that. The state funding is roughly 2/3 of what the funding is. So that money, which is frankly would be the most expansive school choice bill from a financial side, I think, in the nation. I think West Virginia came up with something similar, but really a lot of the school choice stuff that you see going on around the country isn't anywhere close to the amount of funding. We're taking our entire state funding amount and being able to allocate that per pupil and giving that to the hands of the parents to be able to spend on the education needs for the students. So I guess to go back to your question, it could go up or down depending on taxes, right? Maybe 14,000 is kind of high because they had a surplus this year. Maybe there's a deficit, and so taxes are lower, and it could go down. Prior to this year, it was 12,600. So that gives you an idea, and I think it was about 12,000 the year before. Just to give or take, I don't imagine it staying at 14. I imagine it probably dipping a little bit for the next couple, for the next 2 or 3 years, and then coming back up to be in line with the state with tax revenues.
Okay. Right. All right. So Jonathan, is there anything else that we need to know or share about sort of the basics of the school choice initiative?
I think that's it. That's the basics of it. There's more coming. We can talk more about this later, but right now we're in kind of a pre-petition mode. We're trying to get the word out about it, get people mobilized to help volunteer, because it's gonna be a volunteer effort, right? It's gonna take parents to go out and collect signatures, and so that's kind of where we are now. In about 2 months, so mid-September-ish, we expect to get back title and summary from state of California, and at that point we'll be approved to start collecting wet signatures, and we'll have 180 days to get approximately 1 million valid signatures. So our target is going to be about 1.5 million, and that's to get 1 million valid.
Okay, well, you can count me in to help get those signatures going. Okay, well, thank you so much, Jonathan, for walking us through that and sort of breaking it down so we know what we're talking about and what we're dealing with here. We, of course, will be circling back to you in a bit to get more of your personal take on the initiative. But for now, I do have someone that I would like to bring up. I am especially excited also to talk to this speaker. I heard her speak this morning. And really everything that she shared really resonated with me in terms of my why as well, for really finding it to be important to have freedom of school choice. Let's welcome Laura Chappie. Basically, okay, so Laura, let me tell you a little bit about her. She is a lawyer turned educator. She is the co-founder of the Foothill Learning Academy, a nonprofit that supports parent choice in education by organizing vendors to provide classes for homeschooling charter school families. All right, Laura is also the El Dorado County Chair for California School Choice. Let's bring her on up and say hello. Welcome, Laura.
Hi there.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for making the time and for being here. Like I mentioned, I just really, really enjoyed hearing you speak this morning. I really enjoyed hearing what you said. It was like, as you were talking, I'm in my kitchen like, yes, that is exactly what I think. That's exactly how I feel. So again, I was super excited when, you said that you would join us today. Why don't you actually just go ahead and introduce yourself, say hi to everybody. And I would just really like you to share kind of what you spoke about this morning.
Great, I'd be happy to. Like you said, my name is Lori Chappie. I have a heart and a passion for choice in education. I left the practice of law when I've heard Wendy speak many times and her backstory on her kiddos that she's homeschooled. I didn't homeschool my kids. I put them in a private school that I became a teacher at their school. So I exercised my choice in a different way. And I was fortunate to be able to do that because I was able to sacrifice my income, be at the school that they were at, and be able to afford their school. Not everyone has that opportunity. And being an educator and being a mom, which I know a lot of your listeners are homeschool families that, are hands-on with their kids. Every child learns differently. Every child has different needs. Every child has a learning style that fits them. And I saw that firsthand in the classroom. And that's what made me so passionate about my desire to really do everything I can to bring that choice to everyone. You said it, and Kevin Kiley mentioned it. There are people that have school choice, the people that can afford it, but not everyone can do that. So what I've been working on in El Dorado County is bringing that choice through the charter system and through vendors that you guys are familiar with. And it's so important to recognize how every kid has this incredible ability to learn if their needs are met. And there are public schools doing a great job for a certain group of kids, but not for every kid. And the idea that the money can follow the student is just phenomenal. That is what we need to do. And so that's why I, hopped on and just like Jennifer, sign me up. I'm here. Let me help with this school choice initiative. Because when you look at what's going on in the state of California, as voters and taxpayers, we've allocated our tax funds to support things that are important. If someone is food insecure, our taxes are used to help people get the nutrition they need. They're given EBT cards, SNAP benefits, and they're able to spend that money wherever they choose. If they need a certain diet because of their personal preferences or their health needs, they can shop at whatever grocery store they want. But we don't allow that for our own children. Our children aren't able to choose the education they want. And we value education as much as, the other government programs that are run. You look at things like housing insecurity. We value that as a society. So our money that we spend in taxes is used to help people get affordable housing. They get to choose which apartment they want to live in. They get to choose which city within the state that they live in, yet there's no choice in what school kids go to. You're assigned to school. If you're lucky and in a great neighborhood with a great school with a neurotypical student who learns the way that that one classroom is working, it might be wonderful for you. But there's a lot, as we all know, of kids that are learning differently, particularly kids that are in low income inner cities, schools that aren't meeting their needs. And if those parents have the opportunity to choose where those money went, where their education funds went, just like parents can choose what they feed their kids. And if you're food insecure, you can choose where to buy your groceries with government funds. It's just logical to me. That's why I would love to see that. We even see it with healthcare. We have a safety net with Medicaid, but you can go to what doctor you want. Why can't you go to what school you want? So I'm all about money following the student, just like Jennifer was saying early on. Money needs to follow the learner, and that learner's parents know best where that child needs to be. We could go on and on about statistics that show if parents participate in choosing their children's school, how they're more likely to participate in the parent-teacher conference, they're more likely to help with homework, all the outcomes increase tremendously once you get that parent involvement. And by letting parents choose, all of a sudden you're lifting up everyone. And that's, we hear over and over, we want to, we want to improve the schools. This is empower the parents and the schools improve. This children succeed. So I get very excited about that when I talk about it, because it seems like common sense to me. We can start quoting Thomas Paine and so on, because it's just money should follow the student. And of course, there's going to be oversight and accreditation. And just like you can't use your EBT card for, I don't know where you can't use it, because you can use it in a lot of places, but there are limits on what's an approved place. You have to be an accredited school. You can't, when I talk in communities, a lot of times people will go, hold it. Won't it really hurt inner city kids because a bunch of fly-by-night terrible schools will just pop up trying to get the funds? And no, that's not going to happen. There are going to be oversight and safety guards, just like if you get healthcare help, you can't just go to a fly-by-night quack person who says, I'm a doctor. No, you have to be a real doctor to be seen, just like you have to be a real educator to teach a child. There will be those safeguards in place, but it's a wonderful opportunity to strengthen families, improve outcomes, and meet the needs of our diverse population. Diversity is something we hear over and over again, and how important that is. We have diversity in learning, and that's not being addressed. So I could just go on if you want, Jennifer and Wendy. I just get really passionate about this. It's something that, like you said, it's in my wheelhouse when I hear someone talk about it. So.
Yeah, well, I think that by this time, everybody can see why I was so excited to have you come and speak, because you are so genuine in your passion and your reasons for school choice. And like I said, that really resonates me and aligns, very parallel to exactly how I feel. And I will go so far as to say, and I imagine a lot of our audience feels the same way too. So yes, I love everything you say. And I really want to highlight one, portion that, I didn't really think about, but I think is super important is that parent involvement. It's not just that learner, but there is that whole other side that when the parent feels that they are involved in the choice and have the power to choose their child's education, you are more involved, you're more invested, you're more engaged. You're just about it. So that is a great point. I love that you brought that up. Okay, so this was great. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Wendy, do you have anything that you'd like to ask, add, comment?
No, I think she sums it up beautifully. We need to all support each other in having parent choice and education all over our state. Simple as that, right?
Yeah, it really is the civil rights cause of this generation, because our children are our future. And if we're not taking care of these children and educating them in the way that is best for them.
Right.
Public education may be best for some, or traditional brick and mortar down the street, local public school may be best for some, but it's not best for everyone.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and also it brings to my mind the thought that, you were saying something about, schools can't just pop up, but actually it might empower parents to start schools, because private schools can pop up if someone is so inclined. They can start a private school, they can get accredited. And a lot of even our charter schools were started by parents working with educators who saw that the system was failing the students in that district. And so they put together a charter school. So I love the idea of empowering people and letting them realize that they can be involved in education. I was not an educator before I started homeschooling. I was an interior designer. But I realized, hey, I was educating my children long before they even were school age. So why can't I continue educating my children? So I think this is going to empower parents to believe that they can help educate their children. They can be involved in education, and they can definitely make choices in what they feel is going to best fit their child's needs. 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one thing, I don't even remember who wrote it, but I had read a quote that I will forever remember, and I say it all the time, over and over again, especially to new homeschool families. But it's that the biggest problem with the education system is that somewhere along the way, it made parents think that they should have nothing to do with the education system.
Yep.
And I completely agree with that. Parents should have a lot more power and a lot more say in what is going on in their child's education. And the ones that have the ability to have that individualized education that works for them. Okay. Yes. So thank you so much, Laura, for coming on here and speaking with us. Of course, we're going to have you come on back up at the end and give us all your final words. And of course, there are going to be people out there that want to get in touch with you. So we'll make sure we get your contact info out as well. Thank you so much, Laura.
My pleasure.
Okay, so now, of course, before we let Wendy have the floor, because I know we all want to know how she weighs in. I know you're so modest all the time. Stop it. We are going to circle back, and we're going to jump back to Jonathan. We're going to get him back up here because we, of course, also want to hear his thoughts, his just personal perspective on the initiative and how it may affect him and more of the brick and mortar students. Like I said, it's really great for us to have him here with us, tonight, to give us that different perspective of a parent of students that are in the more traditional brick and mortar sector. So Jonathan, let's have him come on back up. Welcome back, Jonathan.
Thanks.
Again.
Okay. So please, if you could go ahead and just kind of share with us your thoughts, your perspective, and also, of course, maybe touch a little bit on what you had to say this morning.
So from a personal level, I can tell, I know a lot of your audience is homeschool parents. I can tell you I would not be a good homeschool parent. That is
not true.
We can make you an awesome homeschooler. I'm telling you, we could.
Well, maybe. I just could tell that my kids are a little bit older. They're now 14 and 17. They're 13 and 16 at the time. So at a middle school and high school, along with another foster child that is in high school. And I saw how bad it was. And at that age, with the programs that they had, they needed to be in school. So I was super passionate. I was, pretty much after the initial 3-week closure, when we found out that it was going to be extended, I was contacting the school board. I was contacting the Board of Education in the county. Everyone was, giving me the runaround. Board of Supervisors and like, oh, it's the governor. Oh, it's the board of. No one knew what was going on. At the end of the day, it was the state that was shutting down schools. And so at that time, that's when I said, you know what, let's organize this group, because I'm tired of the runaround. Let's get together. Let's really, organize some protests. And I thought, you know what, that would do it. That would get our schools open. We did have a great protest in July. But if you were to measure any, the success of what our achievements were, it was a complete failure, because schools were closed for another year for almost all of California. And so this just really grew and grew, and more people were involved. And I would say that a lot of people thought, okay, once cases drop and once it was, safe to open, based off the state guidelines in the fall, when cases did drop and many schools could open, many didn't. And then more and more parents were upset. And then I think there was a lot of people in California that said, okay, well, if Biden gets elected, that's going to fix things. So then Biden was elected. That still didn't open schools, new semesters. So this was like promises after promises. And it just snowballed from there. And there's, and then obviously the narrative, I think, in the media eventually changed after we realized how bad it was by keeping, nearly 6 million school kids out of school for almost a year. So that's kind of the background. And really, like I said, about that fall time, when schools weren't opening, that's when I realized we got to do something, because if we had levers to pull that says, you know what, if you're not meeting my needs, school, if this school is failing the families, those families, they need a choice to be able to pick something different, and that money needs to follow the student. And that will do two things. One is it will enable parents to put kids in schools that are working for them. And then two, it's going to make the schools that they're attending all of a sudden get better, because just like with any kind of other kind of competition, from grocery stores to medicine, if they're not meeting your needs at the grocery store, even if you're spending, it's still your money, right? It's our tax money. Obviously different people pay different shares of that, but at the end of the day, it's collectively our tax money, and it should follow the students, right? Which we're allocating to, which is for them. If that, for the grocery store or whatever it is, isn't meeting your needs, you go shop at a different grocery store that meets your needs, and we get, better outcomes from that. We can talk about studies, but it's just a basic, simple process there. And I think the key is, privileged right now are those who have access to choice. While most of schools were closed last year, even in Sacramento County, most of them didn't have an opportunity to even step foot in a classroom till March. I mean, it's really sad. But Gavin Newsom's own kids were in school in person in a private school the entire year in Sacramento, and actually in a full-time model since November. So really, this initiative is to empower parents to have that same opportunity that Gavin Newsom's kids have, and that is that choice for that education. So this is kind of the background. I would also say that, for your homeschool families, my wife was homeschooled most of her life. So, she appreciates that. But knowing us and our kids, especially, my oldest, man, it would be tough to homeschool.
Well, and that's why school choice is so important to me. I say it over and over again. I could care less whether your child works best in a brick and mortar setting, public charter, private school, religious school, private homeschool. I really don't care, but I feel like whatever does work best for your learner and your family, that should be your choice. So like Jonathan, your kids work best in a brick and mortar public school system. They should be able to do that. Wendy, your kids may work best in a private homeschooling situation. You should be able to do that. My kids work best in a non-classroom based charter school, public charter school situation. And all three of us living here in California with three incredibly different sets of children should all have our choice and be able to educate our children in the way that works for them. So again, just like, Laura said, I could go on and on and on about it for days.
Yeah.
But
one other thing real quick I just want to add is, from my experience with this, it's been an incredible experience just being involved in reopening schools and now in school choice, is that this is a broad coalition of parents from all sides, from all walks of life, from all political backgrounds. It's a kind of this common goal that really is unifying, there's Democrats, Republicans, there's, like I said, there's people who are well off and not well off. And I think that's why we're seeing, it's amazing to meet all these people and work with all these people from all different backgrounds and all different political stripes. But that's what we're seeing nationally, I think, a broad support for movements like this. I think the numbers come out, it's like 70% nationally want something like this. And in California, a majority of voters, there's a recent poll, I believe it was 54%, are in favor of an initiative like creating these education savings accounts, including 71% of Black families and 66% of Hispanic families. And so I think that's just a testament to that this is really a broad, nonpartisan issue that really strengthens families' choice and is important to most Californians.
Yes. Go ahead, Wendy. You go ahead.
Oh, well, it just makes me think. I know you all know that I follow legislation, and I get extremely frustrated by our legislators when they keep pushing and taking away our right to choose what education works best for our students. And, I talk to families who their children are missing some vaccinations because they're vaccine injured, and they've made it basically illegal for those children to attend any kind of private school or public school. And so their money can no longer follow them anywhere. And then my children, the system did not work for. And so I had to pull them out. And then the charter stopped working for my students. So now we're private homeschooling. And I feel guilty thinking this, but sometimes I think well, then it's really not fair that the state just gets to keep my kids' education funds, do what they want with it to support the teachers union, and my children are suffering. I'm like, at the very least, they should put that money into filling the potholes. It should go somewhere else. Stop supporting with my students' money schools that were failing them or schools that they weren't allowed to attend because they weren't vaccinated. So I love this idea of it following the student.
Yeah, and Wendy, I don't think you should feel bad for saying that or thinking that. I think saying that
I don't want to take other kids.
I think a lot of people right now.
So irritating.
Yeah, I think a lot of people right now are thinking like, yeah, I feel that exact same way. And I have thought that exact same thing. I privately homeschool, and, because that was the only thing that was going to work for my kids. And so I did what I needed to do.
Yeah, we didn't necessarily choose to be, I didn't set out when I had children, like, oh, I'm going to homeschool. I thought they'd go to school. I thought I would take the first one to school and then I'd have the next one as a tiny little baby and get to enjoy that, because mine are all 5 years apart. But nope, I ended up homeschooling, which I've loved every moment of it. But that wasn't what I planned on doing. And so I didn't have a problem with the public school system. It just didn't work for my children. So yeah, I love this. Oh, yeah. One more question though. Can we just recap how this will work for the homeschool community? Because it's not like you can just get this money and buy your curriculum. It has to be an accredited program. So let's just cover that one more time, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah. So it's really unique for the homeschool group, right? So if you're part of a participating accredited, private or charter homeschool base, then that would work, and you'd be able to use some of those funds for, certain expenses. And as we know, right, in those situations, you're not going to be using all $14,000. So that surplus will be able to roll forward. In situations where you're not part of a participating, charter or private school, then you can still sign up for the education savings account, but that month, the whole amount would just go into the savings account and roll forward every year until you're able to enroll your child into an accredited, charter or private parochial school, or once they get to college or they graduate, vocational or college. So that's how that would work for a lot of your homeschool families.
Well, and many of our kids start college and high school. I've been so proud of my boys who always told me they were never going to go to college. They're both doing college classes right now. They just took their first college test. One of them got a 93 and one of them got a 96. Woohoo!
Wow.
Well, congratulations to them for sure.
So you never know where their education path is going to take them, and to have a savings account that can help them pay for college if they decide to do it is an amazing thing, because that's not something I can afford to pay for.
Yeah, and maybe one caveat to that money, that might be a question that comes up. It's probably not most people's mind. That money does eventually run out. So if you don't go to college, I think by like age 30, then it rescinds. But you have to at least a certain age to be able to spend those funds on college.
Right. But you don't just lose the money just because you're homeschooling privately. I think that's an important thing to say. And a reason why we should all get behind this as parents in California, because it's going to help everyone. Yeah.
Yes. And, if you, for whatever reason, if you're private homeschooling and you want to opt out, you can also opt out. If you're not interested and you don't want to have anything to do with it, you can opt out. But it doesn't mean that there shouldn't be the choice for everybody else.
Right.
Yes. Okay. So perfect. All right, Jonathan, do you have anything else that you'd like to add before we shoot it over to Wendy?
No, go ahead.
Okay, super.
Jonathan.
Yes, thank you so much for coming back up, sharing your thoughts. And again, this was great for us to tie together sort of our usual familiar homeschooling world with also the brick and mortar, more traditional public school, because this happens to be something that, one, we are super interested in, but also, like we've been talking about, will affect everybody. This is not one sector specific. This is K through 12 California learner specific. So thank you so much for hopping on here and coming and joining our crowd and speaking to our audience. We, of course, will have you hop back up at the end for any of your final words. And I know for sure people want your contact info and that Twitter account. So we'll make sure we get that up as well. Thank you so much. Okay. Wendy. Now, I know we want to hear what Wendy has to say. Wendy is going to weigh in on how this may affect our homeschool community, how this could benefit us. Why should we endorse this? Because I'm just going to say right off the bat, again, sign me up. I am there getting those signatures. That petition, throw it my way, because I am foot soldiering it and getting those signatures. But Wendy, talk to us about your thoughts.
Well, I just wanted to first explain that there's about 23 other states that have pending education savings account legislation. However, school choice experts believe that this ESA legislation will likely only be adopted by states with Republican-controlled legislatures. Anyone who follows our legislation take action pages will know our state legislature here in California is not likely to adopt any legislation providing more choices in education to California students. This is why, as parents, we have to come together to pass a ballot initiative to ensure we have the option to choose the education path that best fits our children's needs. A ballot initiative basically gives us, the people, the power to directly propose and enact state laws and amendments to the California Constitution. So that's a huge thing. We're taking the power out of the legislature's hands, and we are going to enact these laws. So I don't know if you guys are all aware, but in order to have an initiative placed on a statewide ballot for consideration, the vote by voters, the petition must be presented to the Secretary of State. So this is a big project. They have to write it. California School Choice is writing this. Then they have to present it. And then they have to collect 1.5 million signatures. And then they have to have those signatures verified by local election officials. And they will throw signatures out. They'll say that they don't look good, they're unlegible, or they're duplicates or something like that. And so this is a huge undertaking, and it's going to take all of us to help if we want to help every student in California. What's the saying? Rising tides float all boats, or something like that. Raise all boats. This is what we're talking about. This is us, the parents, taking the power back and making sure that our students get the education we want them to. So they need a ton of signatures, and they don't have a lot of time to gather that. So we will all need to be hands on deck, but I think that we can do it. We've done other things like this. So
yes, absolutely. I mean, if we all recall, we did a pretty darn good job when we put up our opposition to AB 1316. We really banded together. We moved across the state. We got the word out. But again, this is going to be a lot bigger than that. So
Jennifer, this is so much easier than calling every single day and emailing every single day. All you have to do is print that out, sign it, ask everyone who loves your kids to sign it. And then once they sign it, they're done. They don't have to keep signing daily.
Just do it.
Right.
Okay.
So much easier than fighting a bill.
Yes. And I mean, really, I'm just going to say this is kind of like, these are the words that we've been really wanting to hear from Wendy's mouth, right? Like, here we have something that can take the power out of the legislators' hands and back into the parents' hands. Okay. So anything else that you want to add, Wendy, before we bring everybody?
No, that's it.
Okay. I love that, though, because that's what we need, and this is our usual gig, right? We got to fire up the troops. We got to get everybody burning and moving, and we got to get everybody in action. Okay, so we're going to get our people going. We're going to get everybody to sign this petition. Let's bring back up Jonathan and Laura. Okay, we're going to go around here, and oh, yes, we're going to do a little cheesy round the table. Final words, because everybody's got something final to say. So let's start with Laura. Laura, do you have any final words that you would like to share?
I just love how Wendy explained that this is the opportunity for the people to act. When I'm out on the street and talking to other parents and talking to the average person, they're like going, we can't do anything. Our hands are tied. I call in, I follow legislative take action. I do all this stuff, and gosh, I feel like I'm beating my head against the wall. This gives people the opportunity to act. Like Jonathan had said, there are just so many polls that show overwhelmingly this is what the people really want.
Right.
It's the big corporate wheel of education that doesn't want it. The people do. And so coming together at a grassroots level, getting those signatures, talking to people when they have concerns, having an answer to that, what the concern is. And the only concerns I have is, well, they might get a bad education. Well, that would be the parents' choice, but that's really not going to happen. There is that oversight. When there's competition in the marketplace, things improve. That's how we came up with an iPhone. I mean, it's just the more competition is, the better things will be. So I'm really excited to get your listeners and the people who came together to defeat AB 1316 to get on board with this, because it will be something remarkable for our state, for our future, for our children. And I listen to people go, oh, I'll just leave California, or I have this problem. And it's like, no, stand up and fight and change and make it how it should be. If someone broke into your house in the middle of the night, you don't just walk out the door and say, okay, I'm done. You smack them over the head with a frying pan. I mean, you got to stand up. So I love this opportunity. And I look forward to seeing a lot of people out on the streets getting signatures for this. It will be a great thing.
Yes. I have to say something about that. I was in Rob Bonta's office. I think it was for the 1500 series. And I will tell you that his staff, they came back to me on my arguments and said that a free market does not belong in California education. Wow. That's what they said to me to my face when I was in there talking about how my own children needed school choice and how I talked to thousands of families every year. They came back and said that a free market does not belong in our California education system. I don't think any parent would agree with that statement.
Yeah, so there you go. This is yet another reason why I hope everybody is getting pretty fired up watching this and making sure that they are going to put their name on that petition to make this happen. We have got to take the power back of our kids' education within ourselves and our families. Okay. Yeah. Jonathan, any final words that you'd like to share?
No, I'm just really glad everyone's fired up and that it's going to take a large effort to get it done. And real quick, just on some logistics, it's because it's a constitutional amendment. I think it's going to be like 4 pages, like 10 by or 8.5 by 14. So there's some printing logistics. So I don't think it's going to be as easy as maybe like some of the other recalls that you could just print it up and sign it home and mail it in. So it's really important that we stay connected and organized to be able to know where are the signing events. Where can you, print, there could be some printing locations we can send you, businesses that you can sign. Maybe you sign up and we can actually mail you a copy of the petition, and then you can sign it, fill it out, and then mail it back, right? So there's all these different ways to do it. And so the way that you can do that is if you go to californiaschoolchoice.org/petition, you can kind of read the bullet points that we talked about earlier about what's in this bill. But then you can, by doing that and signing up, you'll be able to be notified of various updates that are going on with the initiative, which would include, Is
it possible that we can get our schools involved? So have all of our private schools getting signatures involved, our charter schools getting their parents to sign, like have
absolutely
all of the schools?
Absolutely. In fact, that's what we want, right? So. As county chairs, we can't do everything. In fact, we can't do most things. It's going to take leaders in all of our groups. Individual leads own a particular school, right? So if you're a parent or involved in that particular charter school, kind of own it. Say, I'll make sure it happens. Sign up. You can, when you sign up, also to sign the petition, there's a volunteer checkbox, which is really we want everybody to do is sign up as a volunteer. Eventually, you'll get routed to your county's chair, and what you'll do is, and you can then. If you're a team lead, you could be that point of contact, right? Maybe you get 100 petitions sent to you that then you can then distribute at your schools.
Right. Well, even with a homeschool community, at your vendor, wherever you're taking your kids for their classes twice a week, or at your co-op, anywhere that we are, right?
Exactly.
This is great. I'm so glad we linked up because this is, let me tell you, this is right in Wendy and my wheelhouse. So we will get our community moving on this for sure. And, I will tell you, I, for one, will be checking that volunteer box. And hey, if you need some kind of team lead or point person in my area, I am 5,000% here.
Awesome.
Okay, great. So, Jonathan, if you could please maybe give that website one more time, but also just so everybody knows, you don't have to scramble. We are definitely going to have that link attached to the post with this video. So it will be clickable and it will take you right there. But maybe if you could just say that website one more time.
Yeah, californiaschoolchoice.org/petition.
Okay, great. And Wendy, any final words from you?
No, I just so appreciate you guys coming on and helping us explain this to our community. Thank you.
For having us. It's great opportunity to connect. I know Laura's mentioned, but I've watched your videos and helped with some of that take action. Making those calls and spreading it, and so it's just I'm honored to be here with you guys.
Oh, that reminds me. We should do another one just before the petitions come out, just to go over the talking points. There are some arguments that we might hear from parents who are in brick and mortar schools who have been fed lies. And so to just kind of cover those things that we would want parents to be armed with, to be able to educate other parents who might not believe that this is the best thing for all students.
Yes. And there you have it. Everybody saw it. We got nods from both Jonathan.
They said yes.
They will officially be back. So not to worry, we will absolutely be giving you all the updates. So not only will Wendy and I, of course, be tirelessly giving you video and social media post updates, but we will make sure we are staying connected with both Jonathan and Laura to be updated on their end and really get the collaboration going, because like we said, it's going to take everybody pulling together. So one thing that I would like to add before we start to close out, is we all have our reasons for wanting school choice. Every one of us has our different reasons, maybe somewhat aligned with one of the four of us, maybe not at all, but for whatever your reason of school choice, this is the bandwagon that you need to get on. We all come from different places, different perspectives, but the thing that we all need to remember is we all have the final end game goal in mind. It's all the same. We all want the same thing in the end. So regardless of if I agree with you or you or you or you, we need to make school choice a thing here in California. Okay. So, just on my personal note as well, my kids are public charter school. And so that is my reason and my why for being here. Really quickly, another person that shared this morning at the conference was Kayla Cook, who I believe she was maybe the principal of the Rio Valley Charter School where this took place. Something that I think that, people who are in the brick and mortar sector, should be aware of is something that she shared. Charter schools, public charter schools, private charter schools are highly, highly successful. They really are. You may have heard one thing or another about charter schools, but they are highly successful. This particular charter school, Rio Valley Charter in particular, they have 5% of their students are ESL students, 15% are students with exceptional needs, and 55% of their students are socio and economically disadvantaged. So, it is a wide variety of students and learners that are, serviced by the charter schools. And I think it's really important for everybody to understand that this truly, truly, truly affects everybody. Right? So we will update you. Of course, we will keep everybody in the loop. We have the petition that you need to sign. The link is with the video. Please click it right now. Go ahead and put your signature on there. Click that
Jonathan.
box. Yes.
Will Jonathan explain really fast about how it's not the actual signature when you're signing up on the website?
It's not the actual signature. It's, what called the pre-petition. It's just to say, kind of show your support. And then really that we, providing your information so that we can then stay in contact to update you on the status, and then also help engage you to be involved with any volunteer work if you've checked that volunteer box.
Yeah. So the petitions are coming, but we need you to sign up on the website now so we can start connecting everybody. Yeah,
and it can be a common question, because I have seen this in recalls. Once it's available, can we sign it online? And the answer is no. State law requires a wet signature. It has to be printed out, all the information there, and you can only have a certain number of signatures on a page, and it has to be pre-approved with the font size and everything. It's very particular. I mean, just follow any of the recall news where people were, not allowed on the ballot or couldn't have a D next to their name. For very, small adjustment. So security of stuff is very particular. So it's going to be important that once it's available, we're going to have to be able to organize and find, those locations and be able to mail out those petitions to you so that you can sign those, provide those wet signatures.
Okay. Very good. All right. Perfect. So again, go ahead, click that link. We need to get everybody here on board. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Jonathan, for being here. Let's give out some contact info. Okay, if you want to get in touch with Jonathan, and regardless, if you are on Twitter, you need to follow this Twitter account. I mean, hey, Kevin Kiley gets all of his info from there, so you might as well too. All right, so on Twitter and Facebook, he is at Reopen CA Schools. So go ahead and find him there. Okay, if you want to get in touch with Miss Laura, you can email her at mrschappy@gmail.com. And then also, you guys need to check out Facebook and Twitter. You can go to @schoolchoice2022. There is a main page, and you guys can correct me if I have this wrong. There is a main page, which is @schoolchoice2022. And from there, you can also then connect with your own specific city's group as well. And there's a leader attached to that also.
Yeah, each county.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay, and then of course, as always, for Legislation Take Action, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can get in touch with Wendy Eklund always. Message her with this post. You will, as always, we love to shout out Wendy's phone number because
please
have it. So with this post, you will also have Wendy's phone number. Feel free to call her or text her at any time if you have any questions, especially now. We are open to talking to you. All right, again, make sure you also subscribe to our channel for all of the updates. We're going to have Jonathan and Lauren already on here again to give us all the updates on the petition and how this is moving along and what we need to know about this initiative, as well as anything else with just Wendy and I. So make sure you subscribe to our channel At the Table with Jennifer McQueen. And then, of course, if you ever have any further questions, you can feel free to email us at thetablejm@gmail.com. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here tonight. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. We're rounding out about an hour here, one of our longest episodes yet, but quite frankly, one of our most important ones yet, I would go so far as to say. All right.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Thank you guys so much.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody. Have a wonderful
Thank you.